A massive shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and today we are going to be talking about some differentials, one of my favourite topics when it comes to FPL. I love identifying and talking about the best differentials to go for in our FPL team. So guys, if you do enjoy this one, please do leave a like, please do subscribe. We've got a couple of days until the next deadline, but still we can have our eyes on the prize with some of these differentials. Now, firstly, I should say, guys, that I've got a load of different players from different teams here, and I want to say that they're not all necessarily differentials to go for in Game Week 22 necessarily, but just maybe players to be keeping an eye on over the next couple of weeks to potentially be bringing in. So they're not all necessarily players to buy right now, but they're all players that a lot of you guys are talking about potentially buying soon or now or, you know, whatever. So 5 categories, you know the drill by now, guys. We're going to start off with the most popular of the 30 players and work our way down to the most differential of differentials, the lowest owned of the players in this video. So let's start off with a fairly highly owned differential, I guess, and that's going to be Trossard. So Trossard is going to go straight in the avoid section. We can go and put him in there fairly quickly. Don't think he's going to be starting any games for Arsenal. I think he is going to be mainly on the bench, playing in those cup games and, you know, in Europe as well, but I don't think he's going to be getting much game time in the Premier League. It's going to be kind of cameos off the bench, so don't think he's really a player to go for. I know people are excited about him, new signing for Arsenal, but I think he is really in this team mostly as a backup option. Next up, I'm going to put Rodrigo in, and I feel like for the double game week in 22, Rodrigo is one of the players I would be more likely to go for. I think he is one of the better ones. I don't love this double game week for Leeds, and I do think there is a chance that this could be one of those trap double game weeks. We saw that similar kind of thing with Chelsea and Fulham a few weeks ago, didn't we? Where both of those teams, yes, they had doubles, but because Chelsea was one of the fixtures, same with Leeds, you know, because one of the fixtures is Manchester United, is this going to be a huge opportunity for points for Leeds? I don't think so, not necessarily. Rodrigo, we know about his minutes, can sometimes be rotated as well, and he does seem like the kind of player that you might not necessarily want to keep long term as well, and I think that's going to be a bit of a recurring theme when it comes to our Leeds players. So we're going to put Rodrigo in a good option. I don't really think like he's much better than that, but I do think he is probably my favourite of the Leeds players to go for the double game week. Next up, Bruno Fernandes, and I feel like he is arguably a must buy at this stage. I have to say, he is probably the best of the kind of differential players to go for in the whole of the game for Game Week 22. You know, we're talking really about the best players to pick for 22, highest predicted points, players we're expecting to do well are Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, and Luke Shaw. Everyone owns Luke Shaw already. Everyone owns Marcus Rashford already, but you can get a little bit of a differential here with Bruno Fernandes. And if you've got your team fairly well sorted right now, you've got transfers in the bank, and you feel like you can afford to go from, you know, De Bruyne to Fernandes and then back to De Bruyne again, I definitely would consider doing that. If you've got a Mo Salah in your team, I'd definitely consider moving him to Fernandes. I think there's lots of options there to allow you to get Fernandes in your team, and he's not going to be super highly owned either, so I feel like this could be a real way to get a good advantage over some of your oppositions, I suppose. Botman, I'm going to put in great option. I still think he is the best 4.5 million defender to go for. The reason I've kind of dropped him down slightly in this video, I guess, is because I feel like there is that potential for the blank game week in 25. That looks even more likely after the result that Newcastle got in the League Cup semi-finals. But it does look like Newcastle are going to blank in game week 25 because they will be playing the, well, we think they're going to be playing the League Cup final in that game week. So they're not going to be available to play. So therefore, you know, maybe Botman could go on your bench. It's kind of up to you. Maybe you can transfer him out later. The thing is, Newcastle just keep clean sheets every game. So Botman is still going to be a player that gets you so many points when he's not playing that it kind of might actually end up being worth it. I still think he's, you know, a really, really important player to have, but not quite must buy just because of that missing fixture. Next up, Eddie Nketiah. I feel like maybe not necessarily for this game week, but he is going to move into the category of great option, must buy. I think he's a really good option to have when we've got this Arsenal double game week. Kind of got to think about what Arsenal players we want, and I would genuinely put Nketiah very, very high up on that list, mostly because he's got the best numbers, the best underlying stats since the break of any Arsenal player. He is just putting up insane numbers. He is getting so many opportunities to score. it really is looking very, very good for him at the moment. He's playing well, he's playing with confidence, and Arsenal have a double game week in 23 as well. So I would definitely consider trying to get Nketiah into your team. Either game week 22 would be good. Arsenal play against Everton, who are managerless at the moment, so that could be a pretty interesting one to go for. And after that, we got a double game week for Arsenal, which is very nice as well. So overall, I think Nketiah is definitely one of the highest players that should be on your priority list of players to buy alongside Bruno Fernandes. Let's put Ward-Prowse next. He is going to be an optional player. I think he's still playing pretty well. He's on those set pieces, but he's also playing slightly more advanced. I think the problem with Ward-Prowse is that our midfield slots are kind of limited in a way. We're all going to have Rashford. We're going to want the likes of Fernandes. We're going to want maybe one Manchester City midfielder for game week 23 as well. And then you've got your Arsenal midfielders. You've got Saka, Martinelli, Ødegaard there as well. So how are you going to fit them all in? I think that's the one problem with going for Ward-Prowse, that there's no double game weeks and he's not going to be in that template of kind of midfielders that you want. Speaking of midfielders you might want, how about Mitoma? So yeah, Mitoma was actually, when I made a differentials video a couple of weeks ago, Mitoma was the #1 must-buy player. So I wasn't actually able to get Mitoma into my own team because it would have broken my structure and my budget for my own team. But I'm so glad to see a lot of you guys in the comments saying, yes, you recommended Mitoma as the must-buy kind of differential to go for, and he's been absolutely smashing it for you guys, and I'm so happy to hear that. So congratulations to any of you guys who took the plunge and went for Mitoma. I think he was like 0.7% owned when we did the differential video last time and put him in the must-buy category. So really glad that came out, because he really was the #1. But I don't think he's going to be the #1 differential to buy anymore. Partially because there's a very, very good chance that Brighton are going to actually blank in game week 25. Yes, they have a couple of good fixtures over the next 2 game weeks, but in those 2 game weeks, are we going to really want to prioritise our transfers on a Brighton player who is going to be, you know, have a blank game week in 25, or do we want our Manchester United and Arsenal players? It's going to be Manchester United and Arsenal players over the next 2. After that, Brighton's fixtures do get slightly worse, and then after that gets even worse because that blank. So if you haven't already got Mitoma in your team, there is an argument to say you maybe have missed the boat. I'm not saying that completely. I still think he's a good option, but to get him like in that elite must-buy category that I had him in before, I feel like you need, you need more fixtures in a row that are good, and not as many other options that we need to be going for right now, of which Mitoma is not. So yeah, he has dropped down a little bit there, but still a good option to go for. You might be slightly late on this one, though, to be fair. Callum Wilson, I think I'm going to actually put him in a void because, unfortunately, Newcastle just aren't scoring very many goals at the moment, and I think Isak is breathing down the neck of Wilson at the moment as well. Let's put in Bailey, who I think is an okay option, you know, an okay backup option. If you're on a wild card or you need to save some money somehow, then I feel like Bailey is a good option to go for as that cheap midfielder if you're trying to free up some cash there, so that's not too bad. Tyrone Mings, I think, is actually possibly moving up into the good option category just because he is so cheap. He's got a good fixture in game week 25 where you are going to be relying on your bench players. So Mings is a bench player. Like, if I'm on a wild card, I think Mings has got a very good chance of coming into a wild card team. So I feel like he's actually a pretty decent player to go for his price. So don't mind that one. Christian Eriksen, I'm going to put in optional. I'm going to probably put him in, like here. I'm not super confident about this one. Yes, he's got this double game week, but he is a player who plays quite deep, and he does really strike me as a player who you are going to want to get rid of fairly soon after. We're not really expecting big returns from him in the long term necessarily. The likes of Fernandes and Rashford, these are going to be the big scoring players. Same with kind of Luke Shaw, maybe some of the other midfielders as well. Eriksen, I'm not really going to be putting in that category. I feel like if you buy him for the double game week, it's just because you're trying to force double game week players into your team, no matter who they are, and it's going to be something you regret when you want to transfer him out later. Similar situation with Anthony. I'm going to put Anthony around the same area, a bit more explosive, a bit more chance of those FPL returns. But one thing with Anthony is because I feel like there is this chance of rotation for Manchester United when they've got all of these fixtures in a short period of time, we're going to have the likes of Fernandes and Rashford. These are going to be nailed on players because they are so key. But Antony is one of those players who I feel like can be rotated a little bit, and it is rotated sometimes. You know, we've got the likes of Garnacho. We're going to see, you know, Sancho back very soon as well. So maybe there's going to be some rotation for Antony that isn't going to be the same for some of the other players. So I think he's optional, could do really well in the double game week, could be a real nice differential for the double game week, but certainly might cause you some problems long term, might be a player you want to remove long term. And Mbumo, I'm just going to put in the avoid section straight up. Another player who's likely to blank in game week 25, and there's just a lot of better forward options at the moment to go for, isn't there? So Mbumo is going to be, unfortunately, in the bin of avoid. I'm going to put Casemiro, similar place to these guys. The good thing about Casemiro, he is quite cheap. So let's put Casemiro in the optional category. If you're just looking to try and free up some money and want to get a double game week player at the same time as that, then that's okay. One problem with these Manchester United players is if you do get stuck with them, and Casemiro is the kind of player you might get stuck with, they are also very likely to blank in game week 25. So these are not players you necessarily want to be stuck with. You know, the likes of like Rashford or Shaw or Trippier, who all, you know, Newcastle players as well, blanking in game week 25. There is a chance that you're going to actually want to keep them even in game week 25 and just bench them for that week. But players like Casemiro, they're going to be players that you're basically going to be forced to remove them or play with less players. So that's just another thing to consider. I do think these players are optional, but it's difficult for me to say to put them any higher than that. Really. Next up, let's put John Stones, who I think is actually probably the only Manchester City defender that I'd be considering getting at this point. If you don't already have a Man City defender, I probably wouldn't bother unless it's John Stones, just because of that rotation. But now John Stones is back, do think he is going to be nailed on. Man City with the double game week in 23 could be an interesting player to go for. A little bit of a differential there, and you know, we're looking for those nailed players, aren't we? Ollie Watkins, let's put him down here as well. Not really too keen on this one. Maybe slightly higher than Wilson, just because he doesn't blank in 25. But who's spending 7.1 million on a forward that you know, often misses his chances, doesn't score too many goals, so maybe not. Jared Bowen is also going to be a void. I think a lot of people are knee-jerking on Bowen at the moment because they saw his fantastic score in 21. Not really considering that he plays Newcastle next. Newcastle don't concede goals, particularly they're not going to concede goals to West Ham. A couple of other difficult fixtures after that for Bowen as well, so not really a player I'm thinking about. Ferguson, low optional. I think he is technically a little bit of an option, particularly if you're trying to switch your formation, two men up front, and just have that kind of you know, cheap forward as your third forward, just to save a little bit of money there. The problem is, he is going to cause you problems in 25 if he blanks, and also I am a little bit concerned about rotation there. Danny Welbeck is available now, so maybe Welbeck is going to be kind of playing some games, Ferguson is playing some other games, but I do really rate Ferguson as a player, and I do think he's probably got a good place long-term in the Brighton team, and maybe he's more like the kind of player we should think about when we next wildcard, after the blank in 25, when we wildcard in, kind of thinking about what kind of Brighton players we want to pick up. Ferguson could be that guy. Next up, Akanji. Like I say, Stones is probably the only real Man City defender I'd be keen to get. Man City aren't keeping enough clean sheets for it to be worth going for a rotation risk player like Akanji. So if you haven't got him already, I probably would not be buying him right now. Che Adams is going to go in a similar situation to Ollie Watkins, just not getting enough attacking returns, really. Let's put him like here. Mudryk is a really interesting one. I actually feel like he's been doing quite well, and I found him like quite an interesting pick. Like in his first game for Chelsea, I was like, well, there's a player here. This could be really interesting. It could change the fortunes of Chelsea. 7 million is not the worst price in the world, and it's going to be a huge differential. And if he does turn into a bit of a superstar at Chelsea, that could be really, really nice. So I find this differential kind of interesting. I'm not going to say it's a good option or a great option. I'm not quite happy to do that, but it's definitely interesting, that's for sure. Isak, still not sure if he's going to be starting or not. I think he's a better option than Wilson. I think he is going to be coming into this team at some point, but with a rotation risk and the blank coming up, I'm just not happy to recommend Isak. So let's put him right there. Estepinian, I don't really like the Brighton defence. They don't keep too many clean sheets. Potential blank in 25. Another player who I know a lot of people are excited by because of his game week 21 score. Still, I think he is going to be in a void. Same with Serge Aurier. He's got some good scores recently. Do we really want to be spending 4.5 million on a defence that is not the best in the league? the logic says no, we probably shouldn't buy Aurier, right? So I'm going to put him in the avoid section for now. Wan-Bissaka, I think, is probably somewhere between optional and avoid. I'm going to put him really, really low tier optional because I feel like Dalot is probably going to be rotating minutes with Wan-Bissaka. So I think that's potentially a dangerous player to go for. So let's put him there. Next up, we've got Rico Lewis. Again, rotation risk. Is it really worth going for him? I guess because he's so cheap, that does open him up to be a bit of an optional player because he can, you know, free up budget elsewhere in your team, which is a good thing, right? So let's put him next to Akanji. Not quite as good as Akanji, and he's about as rotation risk as Wan-Bissaka, so maybe we put him like there. Let's put him there. Actually, Wan-Bissaka, at least his double game week is in 22, so let's put Lewis there. Next up, Nonto. I'm going to put him low good option. I'm not quite convinced enough to put him any higher than that, and I know a lot of people will probably say, you know, they really rate Nonto at the moment. I know people have got the Nonto fever, but I haven't really. You know, this double game week is good. You know, it's good to have a double game week, I suppose. Nonto is very, very cheap, and what I love about Nonto is that because he's 5 million, he is so good if you want to free up your budget. He's a player that you can bench as well in future game weeks, and he frees up a lot of budget, and you can play him for this game week. What I worry about with Nonto is that is he a good long-term option? And to me, the answer is no. I probably wouldn't want to be playing him beyond game week 22, really. Somerville is going to be back very, very soon. It's going to eat into Nonto's minutes. Maybe even within game week 22, Nonto's minutes could be reduced. There's no guarantee he starts both games. But like I say, he is so cheap that there's arguably no real risk in going for him. So in that way, I think he is a good option, but I don't think he is as elite as a FPL pick as certain other people are making him out to be. But that's just my personal opinion. Wouldn't be the first time I was wrong if I was wrong about this one. So let's keep him in the good option and not go any further than that. Next up, Weghorst. Really interesting pick. You know, I think he played quite well against Arsenal. Am I quite happy to put him in optional? I guess he goes with a lot of these other Manchester United players. The risk here, really, with Weghorst is Martial going to be fit and available? If Martial is not fit and available for game week 22, then Weghorst suddenly becomes a really, really nice pick for the double game week, and arguably moves into the good option category because you know he'll be nailed on. So let's just say, for example, Martial is unavailable for the double game week. In that case, I feel like Weghorst is a good option. Better option than Nonto. And better option than Mings, and maybe even a better option than Rodrigo. Actually, I wouldn't go that far. Right, but I'll put him right there. Pretty good. I think that works. Next up, we've got Bamford. He can go straight into the avoid category. I know he's got a double game week, but how many minutes is he going to play? I'm not fully sure. He could maybe eat into Rodrigo's minutes, I guess, which is the risk you take with Rodrigo, but let's put him like, I don't know. I'm not too happy about this one. And he's not a player you're going to want long-term, really. Let's put him, like, all the way down here. Somewhere around here. I think that makes sense. And finally, Badiashile, who I actually kind of like. Maybe this one is a little bit controversial, but I know a few of you guys are looking for defenders at the moment, and Badiashile is playing for a Chelsea defence, which is actually a pretty good defence at the moment. Back-to-back clean sheets for him. He's playing very well. He's looking very good. He's only 5 million, so he's one of the cheaper Chelsea defenders as well. Should be reasonably nailed on now. They paid a lot of money for him, and his performances have been good. Maybe Chelsea are going to be able to keep some more clean sheets. I think they've got some reasonably good fixtures. They've got no blank game weeks coming up. If you're looking for that defender, you've got a bit of free cash. You can't, you know, maybe you can't get to Kepa for whatever reason, who has been doing really well in goal for a lot of people, and you do want to get involved in that Chelsea defence. Is Badiashile the answer? Possibly. Still not quite as good as Botman, but Botman does have is likely to have that blank game week. So yeah, Badiashile is like genuinely, possibly a player that you could go for. So guys, that is going to be it. That is the tier list. I think this looks really, like, quite good. I think there's some really nice differentials in here and a lot of differentials that are a little bit riskier / straight up avoid. So obviously we've got to be aware of those. But let me know what you think about the ratings of these differentials. Do you think I got any right or any really wrong? Is there any you have a lot of confidence in that maybe I don't? I'd be interested to hear all about your opinions. Or maybe there's some other differentials that aren't even in this particular tier list that you think we should talk about. Leave them in the comments and I'll see if I can read any of them and try and put them into some categories down there as well. Leave a like, of course, and do subscribe as well. That would be pretty awesome. But there we go. That is the tier list. Before you go, a quick shout out to my mates over at Squarespace who have kindly sponsored this video. Squarespace is a powerful and beautiful online platform that you can use to easily create your own website. It's a great way to create an online community without needing any coding experience, and fully integrated extensions can help you with those annoying things like inventory management, bookkeeping, tax, and international shipping. Connect with your audience and generate revenue through gated members-only content, manage your members, send email communications, and leverage audience insights all in one easy-to-use platform. There is never been a better time to step up your side hustle. If this sounds like it's for you, then go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/FPL Mate to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.